Hi, welcome to the Law of Fojo podcast. I am Robert Fojo. I'm your host, and I'd like to welcome my guest, Josh Rhodes. Josh is the founder of Crypto Y'all. He is a crypto investor, an educator, and an entertainer. He has been featured on podcasts such as Wealth Without Wall Street, Funnel Hacker Radio, and Anchor FM Radio. Josh began his business journey as a corporate sales leader. He transitioned into the president of Inc. 5000 firms, and he exited several ventures successfully. He is also the author of Digital Agent Secrets, and he built a learning platform in the real estate niche that has served over 40,000 real estate agents in the last decade. Josh is now focusing his energy on cryptocurrencies, and he's created fast-growing passive crypto strategies. Josh, welcome. I appreciate your time coming on the show, and thank you for your interest in talking about a very popular topic these days.
Yeah, man, I'm honored to be here.
So it's no secret that crypto it's gained a lot of popularity over the last few years. The popularity itself is growing at an accelerating pace. How would you describe crypto to someone who has no clue what it is?
Well, I think it's really hard. The word crypto or the category of crypto is it's almost like walking into a zoo. It's like you're there to see animals, but there are so many different kinds of species that you've got to be careful knowing what to talk about. So I would probably start with Bitcoin
Mhm.
since it's the largest market cap and it's been around since 2009 and 13 years or so. It's truly the largest peer-to-peer network and largest computer network on the planet that also happens to have a currency called Bitcoin. And Fidelity Investment, they have about $4 trillion under management, put out a paper on Bitcoin in
Mhm.
February of 2022 called Bitcoin First. And basically, the synopsis is that Bitcoin is a superior form of money.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because it has better property features, or money is supposed to have certain characteristics. For example, money needs to be recognizable. Okay, well, the US dollar has that, right? It's the
Right.
world reserve currency, etc. Or money needs to be portable. Um, if you want to go buy groceries, but you want to buy it with blocks of gold, you better have a dump truck or a wheelbarrow or a horse and buggy or something to carry it in. So it's not very portable, but dollars are, fiat money is, and digital currency is very portable, right? It happens digitally and at light speed. Um, Money needs to be something that's scarce and durable, something that doesn't lose its value when a central authority, such as a government or a manipulative firm or central bank, wants to inflate its value or liquid or dilute its value. And so the society as a whole needs a better form of money. And so the effort that Bitcoin's trying to put forth is to provide a decentralized form of money that is immutable and incorruptible and acts as a digital bank account for anyone on the planet, both banked and unbanked. I think Bitcoin, for example, will lift millions of people out of poverty because it'll give them the opportunity to have liquidity and the opportunity to own property for the first time, even in third world or emerging industrial societies. So, I think if you're just getting into crypto and you're just now paying attention, you're still early. Less than 20% of Americans, for example, own crypto. We're on the front end of it, but you also need to know the different types of cryptocurrency out there. But Bitcoin's where you should start.
Um, I mean, how many types of different coins are there? I think it's in the thousands now, right?
Thousands. Yeah. It's more than anyone should ever count or consider in their investment strategy.
Why are there so many different types of coins?
My 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 contention would be that basically there's Bitcoin and there's everything else. I'm not what you would call a Bitcoin maximalist, but I do believe in Bitcoin's leadership. But everything else is basically a software company. Every other altcoin is effectively a Microsoft, an Apple, an Amazon of the past that is on the front end of this blockchain technology movement, trying to create decentralized platforms, but they're actually centralized because they have development teams and things like that, where Bitcoin has a decentralized network. But the reason why there's so many of them is because of innovation and the Wild West nature of capitalism and people wanting to accomplish the next Bitcoin breakthrough in society. And all of the industries are being touched now by blockchain technology. So every time blockchain becomes like a utility or has a future utility in an industry like health records or storage or security or real estate transaction management, that opens up a door for, startups.
Do any of these other coins have any value? I mean, I know none of them have the kind of value that Bitcoin has, but do they have any meaningful value?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of ways to look at value too, right? There's like, how much can I trade this for US dollars right now, right this instant, right? You got that, that token price or that stock price. And then you got the utility value, which is, what physical purpose does this serve? And so I'll contrast it with something extremely popular in the zeitgeist or in the culture, which is are meme coins like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or a lot of them, what we call community coins or meme coins. Well, they don't have a utility typically. It's really just more about Metcalfe's law of adoption. How many people can we get on board? And the more people there are, the less supply, the higher demand, you get price action.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a pump and dump scenario. But there are other projects. I'll give you a great one that's listed on central exchanges all over the world. It's called Chainlink. The ticker is Link. Chainlink is an Oracle service. So get this, people there, we've got this technology called the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So go back in time and, when we first had the internet emerging, the internet wasn't what it was in year one, what it is now, right? Like you can go to Google now and almost have this pseudo omniscience about any topic that you want to talk about. But back in the day, the internet didn't have access to as many data points, didn't have all the data connected. There wasn't the infrastructure in place. Well, the same thing's happening with the blockchain now, except the internet was its predecessor. So Chainlink, for example, it has a great utility and value, especially as we go into the future, because it's an Oracle service. Its job, and this sounds daunting, and I can't believe anyone would ever take on this role, but its job literally is to import or basically dump all outside data in the world on the internet into blockchains. So that because blockchains can't do anything except with the data that they have access to. Blockchains are simply racetracks for smart contracts and algorithms to run on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're wanting smart contracts to be sophisticated, they've got to have data to work with. So, if a blockchain needs to react to the Barron's financial report, but the Barron's financial report data is not on the blockchain, then it can't interact with it or it can't react to it. And so the Oracle services like Chainlink and others, that's just one example. There's many others that are emerging, everything from gaming to, digital health record storage.
I recognize the value in blockchain technology. I mean, take for instance, a registry of deeds in your county, where the ownership history for a particular property is recorded, lien history,
100%.
Mortgages, all that. So I can see the value of having something like that in blockchain, in a blockchain system, where it's decentralized. Everyone has access to it. It's very public. It's open source, easy to look at and access. But how does something like you mentioned, Barron's or gaming, how does something like that benefit from being in blockchain technology?
Well, I think it's circumstantial based on the industry and the sector,
Right.
right? So let's just take gaming for a second. I think there's actually a fun little narrative that's happening in gaming. I grew up in the Nintendo era,
Me
so
too.
I played Legend of Zelda with the gold Nintendo cassette.
Yeah.
Back then we didn't know what we didn't know, but now they're creating games like Legend of Zelda and Candy Crush and Farmville and all these games that are,
Right.
even Call of Duty and the rest of it. Now they're creating games and integrating it with NFTs or actual property ownership, which
Hmm.
really comes into the metaverse conversation. So
Sure.
every new game that's created on a blockchain has its own little metaverse, its own little universe where
Yeah.
you can be a property owner. And my kids played Roblox and Minecraft growing up, and as a parent, they would want to spend $9 on a skin for their character, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're burning money." But now you can own that character
Yeah.
literally like a property deed, like a piece of real estate, or their clothing, or their weapon, or whatever, and it has US dollar equivalent value,
Right.
and you can trade it on the secondhand market, and you can play games and earn native currency from that game because that blockchain is facilitating an economy in the
Yeah.
metaverse,
Okay.
and it's allowing people to play to earn, which is really the sales pitch, right? People can now play games and earn crypto that they can use as income.
Right. Yeah, my son plays Fortnite, so I'm
Yeah,
very familiar with the skins
yeah,
and all that stuff.
exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
No,
you've got things like the Sandbox, for example, where Snoop
yeah.
Dogg is a massive endorser and is a character in the game and has virtual metaverse concerts, and you can buy land in the Sandbox. It's crazy. Yeah.
How would you well, I mean, I was gonna ask you about Metaverse, but since that's coming up here, why don't let me dive into that. So how do you buy land in the Metaverse?
It's literally the same process as buying an NFT.
Mhm.
So so let's talk about NFTs
Sure.
just so that we have the foundation. So an NFT, for your listeners, is a non-fungible token, which means one is not created like the other. Whereas if you have a US dollar bill and I have a US dollar bill and we trade it, we still have the same amount of money,
Mm.
right? They're basically identical. NFTs, the whole idea there on the artistic or optical level is that they have different features and they have different traits.
Mhm.
And they have an underlying smart contract or an algorithm, basically, a robot brain that's saying, if you own this NFT, you have basically rights to certain benefits as an owner. And those are dictated by the original developers and whoever owns the original development of the NFTs. But in the metaverse gaming stuff, the way you own property, quote unquote, is through NFTs. And everything appears and is built as an NFT. If you own
Okay.
a tree in a game, that tree is technically an NFT that they've just created the game around.
Okay.
And that's how it works.
I've actually drafted NFT agreements, for a client. I'm a lawyer by trade. Um, so I understand the concept, and I, so it sounds like an NFT, it's essentially attached to something. The NFT itself isn't what has value, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's attached to something else. It represents something that has unique value. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's the mascot, the totem, the
Right.
property deed to your actual property. Yeah.
Okay. So buying land in the metaverse, you're essentially going on some platform and purchasing, and you're looking at what's available,
Yeah.
and you're purchasing an NFT that corresponds to some property, something in
Yeah.
the metaverse, whether it's a plot of land or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's a secondhand market, a massive
I'm sure.
multi-billion dollar secondhand market. And then there's the direct market where you can buy directly from the project itself.
Yeah.
So the Sandbox that I've talked about, it's the second largest market cap behind Decentraland, in terms of metaverse, virtual land games. And
Mhm.
You could have bought land from their open land sales. They basically have, kind of like concert tickets go on sale and backstage passes go on sale. You can get in line or get on a white list and
Right.
have the right to buy at mint. And if you miss it at mint, then you have to buy it on the secondhand market, which is typically where I buy most of my land, unless I just am really up to speed on a new project.
Mm.
But yeah, I own several pieces of metaverse real estate, and they all have different um, functions and benefits depending on the actual metaverse that you're buying in.
I mean, is this a buy and hold strategy? Is scarcity a big component of this, or
Yeah,
is there something that you can do with this land to produce or yield some
all of the
benefit or some
above.
revenue? All of the above.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gave me language was like I was a real estate investor before I was a crypto investor, and so I read the crazy book Rich Dad Poor Dad by the crazy guy, Robert Kiyosaki,
I,
and it
I
changed
highly
my life.
I highly disagree. I read that book when I was in, I think it was high school or college. It changed my life, changed the way I looked at things. The way
Yeah,
I looked at assets versus liabilities.
yeah, yeah. Tongue in cheek with crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's brilliant. He changed my life too. But literally it is the same things the same language categories and understandings of real property in real life
Mhm.
are being mirrored in the metaverse. So for example, you could own land and rent it out to, I'll give you a real practical example. This
Mhm.
is for people listening who are just like, dude, quit talking in concept and theory. Here's the real property. Here's the real example. So I'm a landowner in the sandbox,
Right.
and I bought my land for like point 0.8 Ethereum 8 months ago. And it was about $1,100, I think. I'm
Yeah.
getting daily offers, just daily offers for about $15,000 to $20,000 equivalent in Ethereum now. But
Jeez.
that's not. I'm in it for the long haul. Like I want to
Yeah.
sell it for like 70 Ethereum someday. So
Mm.
I'm in it for buy and hold. However, functionally, what I can do when the game launches publicly, they're giving away. They literally allow anyone with an internet connection to download their gaming design studio that they
Mhm.
created natively for all of their players. And the whole idea of the sandbox is it is a virtual world where you are the creator and you can create whatever you want. And so I could, in theory, rent my land out to Robert, and
Right.
Robert is a sandbox game designing studio in the metaverse. And your business might be to create NFT objects in the sandbox that other characters can sell on the secondhand market, but they come and see you and buy and interact with your store
Mhm.
in the metaverse on my land. And so you're paying me commercial rent
Yeah.
and you're making business on top of that because you couldn't otherwise without being a landowner. And so it's crazy to think about, but yeah, those are the rabbit trails that you can go down.
I see. So, and what do you use to buy land? Ethereum?
Whatever network or main net that the game itself or the metaverse is built on. So Sandbox is built on Polygon and Ethereum, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And so you would have to interact with one of those native currencies. But other metaverses are built on other networks like Avalanche or Binance Smart Chain or other layer ones.
Right. So what you're saying is my 11-year-old son is onto something.
That's right. Yes.
Um, why are people paying so much goddamn money for pictures of monkeys and other NFTs of what they look like, just digital images to me?
Yeah. Well, so my commentary on that is society needed art to give us the opportunity to develop the language to catch up with the technology. That's my
Interesting.
30,000 foot up view. And so we needed art and we needed atrocities, optical atrocities
Yeah.
that are eye catching and unique so that you and I would talk about it on a podcast.
Right.
This is a house of mirrors. Like this,
Yeah.
the reason why it's happening is exactly this. And so that's the meta that's happening, I believe. But ultimately, depending on the NFT, again, the underlying benefits are what people are investing in. For example, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I'm sure most everyone listening probably is familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk and his V Friends. And he even launched a new NFT project that has something to do with sharing meals with him and select others in certain restaurants around New York City, like a restaurant tour. Again, I'm butchering the benefits here, so somebody's probably going to throw darts at us. But the point is, you can't get into these restaurant supper clubs without owning an NFT in the V Friends or whatever that particular project.
Right.
There's other projects also that provide residual income. You might have an ape NFT whose smart contract is algorithmically designed to produce a certain currency every day that's deposited into your wallet, into your hot wallet, into your custodial account. And they might create bananas or banana coins, and each of those banana coins might be worth $100 each. And so now you've got this NFT that's creating virtual money because of you own it, and you can do whatever you want to with those bananas. You can interact, you can trade them, you can sell them, you can hold them. So there's all kinds of different benefits. And so I would say to anyone listening, anytime before you invest in an NFT, understand what you're going to get in return beyond just a picture, and make sure you pay attention to it, because there's a really good chance, because of the competitive nature of the NFT market now, that there's going to be residual value that comes along with that NFT. If there's not, then you might just be buying into like literal hype and FOMO that will fizzle out and not be worth what you bought it for.
So, and the way to figure that out is it sounds like it's the same thing you should do whenever you're investing, and that is conduct some research and understand where you're putting your money.
Yeah, it might sound overboard, but there's stories about Warren Buffett spends first 4 hours of his day every day reading.
Right.
And there's a reason why he's the great oracle of Omaha, is because he's actually paying attention to where he's putting his capital.
Yeah, I mean, I learned from a couple of people who have told me. One was an accounting professor in college. Another one, because I'm not an avid stock investor, but the people who I know who've done well investing in stocks is they actually research the companies that they're investing in.
Yeah.
And financial statements, and they're looking at what the company's developing and what it's doing, and so on and so forth. So they really understand the trajectory of that company before they make an investing decision. That sounds to me like that's the smart way to go about it.
I do a cohort with about 15 investors every month, or retail investors, and the big thing that is one of our 4 sessions. The second session is all about how do you qualify? How do you vet? What are you looking for? What's the 21-point diagnostic checkup that you need to do on a crypto? And a few of those pointers are things like, are the developers or leaders doxed? Are they public? Is there a white paper that you can read? Does it explain the tokenomics or the economics of the project? How does it make money? How does it sustain returns? Does it have a community? Does it have 10,000 or more followers on Twitter or Discord or Telegram? Is there enough critical mass for your liquidity to actually go to work? And so there's things to look for. That's the difference between playing the crypto slot machines and being an actual investor. 100%.
I can see that. So going back to the metaverse topic, what kind of strategy is there, if any? I'm sure there is one, for identifying metaverse land to purchase.
I'll give you a really practical approach. So this is going to be verbal or audible instructions for everybody, but there's plenty of opportunities to share screens and other formats. But Basically, there's two tools I think you need and that I use, and they're free tools. One is coinmarketcap.com, which is a what do you describe it? It's an industry news and price aggregator site where you go and find price of certain coins. You research coins. You can look at it's basically an index of every crypto on the planet.
Hmm.
And there are others like CoinGecko.com, CoinMarketCap are two of the most trusted. What I do is I go to those sites and I find the metaverse categories and I look for low market cap or yet to be launched games. Because typically right now, games are what the metaverse, that's how they're manifesting for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I find either the upcoming or the low market cap games, stuff under $1 billion in market cap, like 100 million to $500 million market cap. Once I find those, I make a short list, and then I go to the secondhand NFT marketplaces like OpenSea.io, NFTrader.com. The list goes on. Each network has their own NFT marketplaces, like Ethereum, Solana. All the different layer ones have different marketplaces. They're easy to find, and I'm going to use those marketplaces and the coin market cap to basically find a short list of projects that I want to research based on market cap, based on aesthetics, like is it beautiful to look at, first impressions, based on I'm going to read its white paper, I'm going to look at its roadmap, I'm going to see if there's like promise, just literally like common sense. If I read this and go, man, this makes sense, I can see, like I'm invested. I'm not afraid to say this. There's one project that I really love called Crypto Unicorns. I own a unicorn NFT. Like it's ridiculous. I'm a 42-year-old man, but they're launching a game here in the next few weeks, and it's going to be public and global for the first time. And I'm a landowner in that game, and there's going to be a lot of investment value that I see in positive price action just because they open publicly when they said they would, and there will be adoption that will surge liquidity, that will increase demand, and price action will go up, and I'll be able to sell some of my assets for a profit, yada, yada, yada. And I found Crypto Unicorns by cross-referencing the secondhand marketplaces like OpenSea and CoinMarketCap last year, probably last spring, maybe last summer, because they have long roadmaps, especially the really well-made like AAA type games.
Right.
So that's a practical approach that everyone can use.
Okay. Interesting. OpenSea, that's a secondhand market for metaverse land purchases.
It's for any NFT, so you can narrow the search based on categories. So Bored Ape Yacht Clubs to metaverse, whatever you're looking for.
Interesting. Going back to cryptocurrencies, I mean, it seems to me that of course I may be wrong, but the when you look at Bitcoin and its price right now, it seems to me that is in large part driven by a buy and hold strategy or speculation. Is that accurate to any extent?
Yeah, I think in reality right now, Bitcoin is still at least considered by the marketplace, the open market, to be a speculative asset.
Okay.
It has been very responsive. There's been a few times where it's deviated, but it's usually very responsive to the NASDAQ or S&P 500. As of late, the NASDAQ, because of its tech focus. And the theory, and time will tell, the theory will be that it will decouple in a drastic way in the near future as fiat currencies become less and less trustworthy. Some of those money properties that I talked about at the beginning, that fiat dollar, it becomes, less attractive in its qualifications. Bitcoin ultimately will be found to be superior. I mean, you already have nation states like El Salvador that has it as a legal tender. So there's a movement, there's a macro narrative that's moving. And if you look at the performance of Bitcoin, just literally from a financial return standpoint, I don't have the exact number, but it's something like 148% year over year growth since 2009,
Hmm.
which is 10x the S&P 500 average over the last 100 years. So um, the trend and the patterns definitely correspond right now with the equity markets,
Hmm.
but there's a strong theory, and the whole idea is for it to become the superior form of money ultimately.
Right. Is there any risk, um, as far as whether it will become a more predominantly become the current currency, a point-to-point exchange, which is what I believe it was originally intended to be?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any risk that governments around the world, the United States, will simply ban its use and try to adopt their own form of digital currency? Is there any risk that will happen?
Yes and no. Right now, even as we speak, the political rhetoric is very pro Bitcoin,
Mhm.
and pro crypto. You've got bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans basically coming out running against each other, trying to compete on who's more Bitcoin. And I think it's because they're waking up to the fact that Bitcoin
Right.
is truly a populist movement. And
Mhm.
populists right now in the West seem to be the mad, angry type that want to overthrow their government and so or take control of their government. So it's a popular platform right now for both sides of the aisle. I don't see um, the U.S. government trending towards any sort of ban at all. As a matter of fact, the Biden administration is talking has asked all of the cabinets and government agencies to now basically, hey, go get your act together. Crypto's coming. We need to know how to regulate this. And
Right.
regulation is not always bad. It's actually something that the markets see as good because it erases any of that doubt or uncertainty, which is really what hurts markets is uncertainty. So if we've got a lane to run in, that's going to be awesome. I mean,
Mhm.
for example, right now, if you run a sovereign wealth fund or pension fund, which is where the largest amount of liquidity in Wall Street resides, you can't legally buy a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There's no exposure that you can do because it's unregulated by the SEC. Well, the moment they provide it as an asset to be regulated and can be purchased, that is going to drive the price through the roof. We're going to see crazy
Yeah.
accretive measures. But overall, I think the biggest threat or risk when it comes to government regulation and governments creating their own central bank digital currencies, the one that seems like to have a target on its back is going to be what we call stable coins. USDC, Tether, BUSD, things that are pegged algorithmically to the US dollar value, which is
Mhm.
effectively it's a competitor. I mean, even in my own personal finance, in my own fund, I keep as little dollars in my fiat bank account, in my retail bank account as possible. And I keep
Yeah.
my dollars in USDC or digital stable coins in a savings exchange that's earning me 15-20% APR or APY just so that I can outpace inflation with my liquid assets or my liquid savings account rather
Right.
than letting it sit in a bank account that's not earning anything.
Mhm.
Well, that's that's competitive to the US dollar because I technically am not holding a lot of US dollars. Therefore, there's not a demand for US dollar. Therefore, it debases its value even more than in addition to the central planning or the printing of money. And so I think ultimately there's going to be a crossroads or a showdown between central bank digital currencies, fiat dollar versus stable coins. That's the biggest risk. But I think Bitcoin's safe. I think it's ultimately going to be the greatest savings account we've ever had.
So you think rather than an outright ban for Bitcoin, governments are more likely to find a way to regulate it, and if and
Yeah.
when that does, and that seems inevitable.
Yeah.
And when that happens, its value will increase exponentially.
Yeah. Rules of engagement, no more Wild West.
Yeah.
interaction and allowing institutional money to truly, publicly traded funds, et cetera, to really have large balances of it on their balance sheets. Yeah.
Gotcha. You mentioned earlier that less than 20% of the population is invested in crypto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for comparison purposes, do you know how much of the population is invested in stocks and mutual funds?
I don't off the top of my head, but I do know like that America obviously is a little bit of a leader when it comes to adoption on certain things.
Yeah.
But like globally speaking, I think it's less than 3% of people own crypto.
Wow.
So that's why I think the more adoption there is, just if you keep the conversation simple and just talk about Bitcoin,
Yeah.
the moment that people have access globally in third world countries, and there are third world countries now that have plenty of satellite or cell phone signals. Like there's a lot of, I don't know which documentary, it might have even been a news series that I saw where you have these remote villages and they have cell phones that are
Mhm.
using payment methods in various continents. Those people have an internet connection. They don't have a mortgage broker. They don't have a
Mhm.
financial advisor. They don't have a central place for a marketplace. They don't have access to property or even literal legal rights to own real estate.
Yeah.
But if they had an internet connection, they could invest and or own Bitcoin on a decentralized Bitcoin blockchain that no one can take from them. And
Yeah.
that would be property ownership. And that's going to lift a ton of people out of poverty.
Yeah. That's fascinating. What do you do, or how do you educate people concerning cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin? What strategies do you use to help educate them and empower them to use it?
What I found, depending on where you are and what station of life you're in and your available capital for investing, the people who are crypto curious
Mhm.
and have some capital that they want to invest, and they have doubts about traditional finance or they have doubts about banks or equities or whatever. Um, right now, the way I do it and what's been most effective is people want hand holding, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but
Yeah.
people, they need a little bit of point and click
Mhm.
tutoring, over the shoulder training, for lack of better words, because it is a very fragmented industry right now. There's a lot of moving parts. And to buy certain, for example, in decentralized finance, if you want to make an investment there, if you want to own a decentralized finance token or, you know, interact with a decentralized autonomous organization or anything like that, you typically are looking at a little bit of a choreography of exchanging your fiat dollars on a central exchange, moving it to a hot wallet. Which hot wallet do I use? Which central exchange do I use? Which native currency do I buy? Where do
Mhm.
I swap it? What decentralized exchange do I use? So there's usually a 2 or 3 lily pads you've got to hop to in order
Right.
to create your final investment. And there's fees and things like that that people don't know how to navigate. And so there's a little bit of an adoption curve. Technical, it's not really. It's technical just because of you're dealing with internet properties, but more so than anything, it's a vernacular problem.
Yeah.
People don't have the vocabulary language in place, and so what what I've found is that people like small groups to learn in, and that's what I try to provide.
So you've identified specific strategies for investing in crypto. Do you mind identifying those and just to kind of briefly explaining what they are?
Yeah, there's a framework that I call the crypto flywheel, and anyone listening who has read Jim Collins' book Good to Great recalls his imagery of the flywheel, which is that
Mhm.
industrial wheel of prosperity and productivity that creates the energy or the production in a industrial age. And I just kind of stole that imagery and I said, well, I'm going to have a crypto flywheel. I use a crypto wealth strategy, um, and that's just a framework for me. I'm an Alabama boy. I keep things country simple as much as I can. So
Yeah.
there's those three strategies that fit into the crypto flywheel are: number one, cash flow. What cryptocurrencies will provide a daily payment of residual income that I can make a choice on how to redirect. I can continue to compound it. I
Mhm.
can claim it as a paycheck, or I can redistribute it into a different part of the investment strategy. So that's part one: is where can I get a 0.5%, a 1% a day of return on my capital?
Mhm.
Um, Part two is, or the second wealth strategy is, your good old fashioned buy and hold, or what I call
Mhm.
appreciation. That's where you're investing long term into things that you believe in, you have a conviction for,
Mhm.
like Bitcoin or Ethereum, or I love Avalanche. AVAX is the ticker. Chainlink, like I was talking about earlier. Things that you want to create, build equity in, strengthen your position. That becomes the bedrock of your portfolio.
Mhm.
And then the third part is leverage. It's really kind of the most exotic part of the crypto flywheel that you have to use with great sobriety. But that's where, we use our assets like Bitcoin as collateral to borrow money to buy more cash flowing assets, much like a rental property investor would take equity out of a house and go buy another cash flowing house. We
Right.
can do that with crypto as well. It has the same property characteristics of assets like insurance and whole life insurance and real estate. And so I
Mhm.
use those in concert to expand net worth, and I use it as a teaching framework as well.
Interesting. So there are crypto investments out there that produce cash flow, essentially like a dividend?
Exactly. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Huh. I didn't know that. So I mean, this is a fairly, I mean, the possibilities, it seems, are seemingly endless, which with which with respect to how you can profit from this industry.
And it wasn't always like this.
Yeah.
Every quarter, maybe even every month now, it feels like early internet days.
Yeah.
There's so much innovation, and there's so much competition, and there's so much one-upmanship in the crypto marketplace. You know, 3 years ago, there weren't any real opportunities to have a daily cash flow in your capital. Decentralized finance wasn't really a thing, at least not the way it is now. And so the more money that pours in to the market cap of crypto, and we're approaching a $3 trillion market cap in crypto. The more
Mhm.
that happens, the more innovations, as free markets, do. They provide new, awesome things that we can do do better with,
Right.
and it's happening every day.
Um, where do you believe there may be corrections in the future? I mean, with when we had the dot-com craze 20
Sure.
some years ago, there was a significant correction, obviously, that occurred. We had the real estate bubble 12, 13 years ago. There's a severe correction there. I mean, where do you think, I mean, inevitably that's going to happen here, this, especially in an industry that is not regulated, where there's so much speculation. Where do you think, if at all, there's going to be a correction?
Well, we're in a correction right now as we speak. Crypto, Bitcoin itself hit a $1 trillion market cap last November
Mhm.
2021, and now it has resided back to about a 780 to $800 billion market cap. So I think corrections are going to be cyclical, just like any other
Mhm.
market. We're gonna see massive corrections. I think we're on the precipice of a market, what they would call a melt up or a pump. And
Mhm.
then I think we're going to see a significant bear season, even more significant than the last 6 or 7 months that we've been in. But again, I think it has a lot to do with liquidity, specifically coming off of or trying to um, recover from years and years of money printing by the Federal Reserve of the U.S. We're about to go into withdrawals, I think, as an economy a little bit. The
Mhm.
economy's strong. Obviously, we have great employment, et cetera. All the primary KPIs are great, but the Federal Reserve is going to start knocking down some of these massive chunks of debt on the balance sheet. They're reversing on the money printing that we've all been drunk on, and I think a lot of the equities and even speculative markets have benefited from that. So it'll be interesting to see how fast and how stable the Bitcoin crypto decoupling is from the traditional markets moving forward.
It's funny when you were talking about politicians earlier who are, using Bitcoin now as part of their platforms and policy promises. The one politician that comes to mind that has truly embraced Bitcoin is the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez. You familiar with him?
Oh yeah. Love it.
I think Miami's actually minted its own coin or something to that effect, right?
Yeah, they're launching the Miami coin, I think. Yeah. I love it.
I'm originally from Miami, so I
cool.
I pay attention to a lot of what's going on down there. My parents still live there, but there is a very friendly environment in Miami because of Suarez for startups, cryptocurrencies. They just had a big, I think it was a cryptocurrency conference down there. I think Peter Thiel attended.
They did.
A lot of prominent people attended. So it's an interesting environment down there, and he's a very interesting politician.
I totally agree. And it sounds like the mayor of New York is trying to compete with him. I don't think he's going to be as agile or successful as Miami's Suarez, but they just hosted the Bitcoin annual conference there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a little bit of an anointing, if you will.
It's like when they held the Super Bowl or something.
Exactly. And one fun thing to study is the Bitcoin bull, the statue that they put out in front of the arena that they hosted the conference in. It's a very fascinating imagery that goes into that bull statue that I won't dive into, but everyone can.
Where do you see Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general in 10 years? What's the state of what it's going to look like in 10 years?
Well, Fidelity Investments have a one of their analysts who's very prominent on Twitter, crypto Twitter, or at least in Twitter in general, put out a great chart a while back that I refer to, which is looking at the adoption curve of Bitcoin compared to mobile phone technology and the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically lockstep, if not accelerating beyond the other two technologies. So if you kind of follow that trajectory, and you look at the last 13 years of performance of zero hacks of the network of Bitcoin, basically obviously not perfect. There are definitely cons to Bitcoin, but pretty flawless performance so far. And then with future trajectory, there's a lot of people that think that, for example, gold's global market cap is $10 trillion. Well, Bitcoin's been around for 13 years and it's already knocking on $1 trillion. Gold's been around for how long, right? Like thousands of years. So the trend is that Bitcoin probably, like Kathy Wood, for example, of ARK Investments, thinks that by 2030, Bitcoin's at a $10 trillion plus market cap, which I think puts Bitcoin at $1 million a pop, I think.
Wow.
If you do the math. So again, if you're playing the long game and you don't want to be complex and you've got a longer time horizon, a simple Bitcoin investment could be it. There's new facilities for that too, like retirement plans. You can get a Bitcoin IRA easy these days. You name it. The future is definitely bright for Bitcoin investors.
Bitcoin IRA, interesting.
Yeah,
I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah, they're the vendors are. I have one myself, and it makes me sleep at night a little bit better.
Yeah, interesting. Well, really cool stuff. Where could people find you, and where would they go to learn more about cryptocurrencies and what you do and how you teach people?
The best place is cryptoyall.co. they can join my email list there just by subscribing for a case study
Yeah.
about one of my portfolio performances. And on the email list, they'll just get all kinds of crazy fun stuff when it comes to crypto. And if they just want general exposure, it's a great place. You know, Crypto Y'all is, I'm from the South. We like to tout our Southern hospitality.
Yeah.
And I try to fuse that with the greatest financial technology in history, which is crypto. And so we just have a good time. It's very approachable. We keep things simple, and we try to help people build their net worth.
Awesome. I lived for about a year in Tallahassee, and
Oh yeah,
I walked out, which is essentially Florida has essentially 3 parts. It's South Florida, which is very international,
yeah,
that middle Disney corridor, which is very touristy, and then Northern Florida and the Panhandle, which is essentially the
yeah,
South.
yeah.
I spent about a
Yeah,
year there, and I walked out of there saying "y'all this" and "y'all that," and, I kinda liked it. I kinda liked it.
yeah. We claim Tallahassee as South Alabama.
Pretty much.
That's fine. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Awesome, Josh. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me and for talking about all this stuff. It's very interesting, very fascinating, and I think it'll be very helpful for people.
Well, thanks for having me, Robert.
Awesome.